Whether you're watching your favorite NBA team at the arena, the bar, or hanging at home, grab an ice-cold Michelob Ultra and enjoy every moment of the NBA season. Stock up today and watch your team drop buckets with a bucket full of ice-cold Ultra. Michelob Ultra. Superior light beer.
Enjoy responsibly. Copyright 2026 Anheuser-Busch. Michelob Ultra. Registered light beer. St. Louis, Missouri. Must be 21 plus to order alcohol. Alcohol available only in select markets.
Study
and play come together on a Windows 11 PC.
And for a limited time, college students get
the best of both worlds.
Get the Unreal College Deal. Everything you need to study and play with select Windows 11 PCs. Eligible students get a year of Microsoft 365 Premium and a year of Xbox Game Pass Ultimate with a custom color Xbox wireless controller. Learn more at windows.com/student offer. While supplies last. Ends June 30th. Terms at aka.ms/collegepc.
We say it to the kids all the time. It's true to the coach too. The film doesn't lie. It's on us at the end of the day to make sure that we're competing at the highest level that we can. We need to throw out these 3 plays. Number 1, do you know what you're doing? Do you know your assignment? Are you doing it in the correct technique? And then are you doing it in the timing of the play? I think those 3 kind of aspects, kind of tying all 3 of those together to me would be execution.
Welcome back to the Art of Practice presented by GoRout. Today we're talking about a problem that every coach has felt. You installed it, you repped it, you thought your players had it, and then Friday night comes and it doesn't show up. So the question becomes, why aren't your players executing? We're going to dig into that topic and look at it from multiple aspects of things that affect execution. I'm joined by Preston Troyer, who's a head coach in Kansas, and we're going to dig into how we can improve that by improving how we teach and put together our practices. But before we get started, this episode of The Art of Practice is brought to you by GoRout, the leader in on-field communication. GoRout helps coaches eliminate huddles, increase reps, and maximize efficiency in their game-changing technology. Sign up using the code coordinator for up to 50% off fees at GoRout.com/podcast. That's GoRout.com/podcast using the promo code coordinator for up to 50% off setup fees today. Now let's get into it.
This summer, serve up the Cookout Classics, Heinz Ketchup, and Kraft Singles. Every good burger needs a layer of perfectly melty cheese and thick, rich ketchup. We all know it's not a cookout without Heinz and Kraft.
Every coach has said it. We installed it, we repped it, they knew it, then Friday night came and it disappeared. But before we blame the player, we have to ask a harder question. Did we actually teach it in a way that could transfer to the game? So that's our topic today on The Art of Practice, presented by GoRout on the Coaching Coordinator Network. And joining me to discuss this is Preston Troyer. He's a high school coach in Kansas. I'm going to let him pronounce the name of his high school and his town because there's a lot of letters in it. But Preston, it's great to have you here on the podcast, seeing your stuff on social media, doing a great job.
Yeah, thanks. Glad to be here. It's Tonganoxie, Kansas is where it's at. It's right outside of Kansas City.
Yes, I was telling you, my son's not too far off from there right now in Garden City, Kansas, playing independent pro baseball this summer. So becoming familiar with the area, I guess, as he moves around Kansas and some of those other states to play ball. But I think today is a great topic. And I can think back into, especially earlier in my career, going through that exact scenario, that same thought process, thinking through, well, we installed it, we gave it the reps this week, it seemed like they knew it, and then Friday, where was our team? And looking back, stepping back now from those early years, 20, 30 years later, getting back into the game and really having an eye for this, you realize that maybe I didn't teach it as well. Maybe there's some things where there was a disconnect. And I think that's a problem we all face. It's easy to fall into our world of thinking like what we're doing is successful, but the proof is always what happens on Friday nights and when you turn on that tape on Saturday morning.
Yeah, I agree. I agree completely. I think that's where I always start. So if I see that we're not executing, I always go directly to number one, did we teach it right? Like, did we give them the opportunity to learn it? And then number two, do we have just too much in? Like, did they get the reps that they needed to even execute this at a high level? And so I think that's where I always start when I'm looking at things when it goes to execution. Like, did we give them the opportunity to learn? Did we give them enough reps to learn? And if we did, then now what are we going to do to fix it? And then it comes to, what do we need to work on more? Do we need to cut things out? Like, I think those are all things that go through my head when I have a Friday or a Saturday morning where I'm looking at the film and we just didn't execute.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot to chew on there. We're going to get into a lot of those different things that you talked about. In looking at it, as the head coach, how do you help, especially the younger versions of ourselves? I have some on our coaching staff now who don't see the disconnect maybe between what they thought they were teaching and what showed up on Friday night.
Yeah, we say it to the kids all the time. It's true to the coach too. The film doesn't lie. So you're either teaching it or you're allowing it. So to me, it's just going into that when you're evaluating, understanding that it's on us at the end of the day to make sure that we're competing at the highest level that we can. And so, I think it's just saying we're not getting it done. I'm more of a let's problem solve and let's figure out what we need to do. Maybe we have too much in and we need to throw out these 3 plays. They're not executing well. This is what we're going to hang our hat on. I think that's the starting point you need. Like, what are the 3 or 4 things that you're going to master? And do we have that down? And then we can build out from there. And so maybe it's just going back to saying, look, these are the 3 things we need to do. Let's start from square one, make sure they're understanding it, and then let's build back up from there.
A good point for us to jump off on all of this. We've said the words a few times, but execution and execute, right? So how do you define execution for your players and staff?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of different aspects to that. Is number one, do you know what you're doing? Do you know your assignment? Are you doing it in the correct technique? And then are you doing it in the timing of the play? I think those 3 kind of aspects, kind of tying all 3 of those together to me would be execution.
I know in just going through a recent Cool Clinic and watching some from past years, I could think of, Kyle Flood talking about some of these things, George Warhop, the idea of, what does right look like? Ultimately, when you see something, and I go back a couple weeks ago, we kind of did I call it an introductory phase of camp. We did 2 days and then we had a week off because of finals. But, we had the ability to start working with the guys. So our head coach put 2 days in there. And, I wasn't quite sure. We're not necessarily set up yet with everything and how we're going to teach it, the classroom time or whatever. So I said, okay, this was the introductory course to it. But I did like that what we were able to get out of those 2 days and watching the players and watching their execution is, it looks right. Now, the stresses aren't on it. We're hitting bags, but the footwork was good. The fits were good. Our reads from our running backs in general were good. So for you, as you go through and you look at the different concepts you had, and I think you made a good point. Like there is a sweet spot of too little and too much, and you want to find that. But how do you define and make sure that there is a standard for what right looks like?
I think that's, as a staff, you need to all sit down and break each component down. Like I like to start with the end in mind. So we talk about whether it's practice or whether it's our game planning or anything like that. It's at our best, what should our offense look like? And then how do we execute that? Like what do our steps need to be? What do our footwork need to be? What does our aiming point need to be? All of those little things, I think you need to sit down as a staff and take it play by play and okay, the linemen, this is what they need to execute here. This is what the quarterback's footwork should look like. This is the running backs, how that mesh or whatever should time out the receiver's release. So I think it's just sitting down as a staff and breaking down each concept that you're going to put in and then making sure you understand how are you going to be successful with that concept. What is the footwork? How are we going to put our kids in position to execute?
When you look at then the drills that go along with it, what's your philosophy on the drills that you're going to use, how much you're doing, how much you want to get out of it? I think there's so much to chew on here. That's an episode in itself. But how do you look at, the reverse engineering of it? This is what it's supposed to look like. How do we get there?
Yeah. So I'm big on let's look at what each position has to do when you get to that final point, and let's just fine tune. Let's isolate that and let's teach it. And that's, to me, I keep drills really simple. We don't need a bunch of if it's not in the game, like we're not a big shoots. I know this is like controversial, but we're not big on like all the different things. We're pretty minimalistic. We're going to work our steps, our footwork. We're going to put a defender there and we're going to start there with 1-on-1s and then we're going to work to 2-on-1s and then 2-on-2s. Like it's just that simple. Receivers, we want to make sure that we either have a defender or a cone out there that we're not just running routes on air to nothing, or there's always a defender that's going to alter that route to a certain extent. Like we need to have that out there. The quarterback, I think in the gun, it can get kind of lazy back there. Like we need to make sure that if it's a quick game, that we're 1 step and it's out, or a 3 step and it's out. We're not hitching 5 times to throw a simple post. Just those little things like that, making sure that whatever it looks like in the game is what it should look like in that drill.
Yeah, I'm with you on routes on air. I've kind of engineered what we would call routes on air to make sure that we had those key defenders out there. I did hear something great from Joe Furco at GoRout, and he helps at the College of DuPage, in that they actually use their GoRoutes to do some of their stuff, their walkthroughs and some of their on-air stuff, so that the guys will look at it and see what is the reaction they're supposed to have and see the defense out there. Now, I mean, that's still not giving them the decision-making part, but I think it's getting more out of than just going on air, that, in this particular, let's say we're running 4 verts and you have the seam read, your guy rolled to the middle of the field. Yeah, you're staying on your seam. Or, you see that the guy's getting outside of you and now you can bend it into the middle. Like to me, those are important details for any kind of a walkthrough, or especially an on-air. And I thought, Joe, that's brilliant. We're going to use that this year. But I think that decision-making part, I do believe there's a point where you have to show and teach, like when this happens, here's the reaction, and teach that single reaction. But at some point, you need to get this to that player has to have the decision-making layer within the drill. It can't all be one step, one reaction, thing like that, because that's just not how the game plays out. I mean, it'd be great if our defender would do the exact same thing every single time. It makes it easy for us, but we know that's not going to happen.
Yeah, exactly.
What kind of things, you mentioned the routes on air, and what other kinds of things do you look at and encourage your coaches to work into their drills in that manner?
Yeah, I think one thing that I was really bad when I was an early offensive coordinator, because I thought I was going to be I wanted to be overly organized, right? And so I wanted to have this call versus this look in this drill or this scenario, and it creates like this robotic. And then you get to a game and then they line up differently, or these are high school kids on both sides of the ball. So maybe, yes, there's supposed to be a 4-2 with a 3 tech, but he's head up now, or we zoned to the left and he didn't move, but we've been stretching with it. There's all these variances that when you teach them in a robotic way. So we've gone to more like we just kind of line up in our defense and then we let them move, and let's just pick a gap. Or we do a lot of half line just to get good on good. And I don't care. We have 3 blockers. There's 3 guys. Do something different every play. And maybe it's not, and I'm not yelling at the scout team guy, well, they're not going to do this in the game, because I don't know what the defender is going to do in a game. So I think it's creating those scenarios where what a defense is going to do, but you don't at the same time. So it's just let's be prepared for everything, and let's let these kids problem solve.
Yes.
Let's let them, we have our rules, right? And so let's teach our rules. And then if they're in some unsound thing, then what are we going to do? What are we going to do in a game if they line up in this crazy, funky defensive front? Let's solve it. And then let's use our rules to do it. And then if it gets us a play, let's talk about it. Well, what should we do in that scenario? And then I think we're getting that learning, and we'll be better on Friday nights for that.
100%. It is about teaching our players to be problem solvers. I tell them all the time, guys, the diagram that I show you is just a starting point, and it doesn't communicate all the different things that are going to happen while you are running that line. There's going to be, all kinds of different variations. That's why we do these drills. That's why we do things. And you're going to have to problem solve, because it takes our plays, the way we've designed them is, if you understand how to problem solve on the run and make these little adjustments, the play will work. It might not work, as successfully as when you draw it up against a perfect defense, but it's still going to work. It's going to move the chains.
Yeah, exactly.
With just looking at the setup of individual drills, I've been rethinking this a little bit too. Been some conversations with Sean Mishka on this podcast. He's a movement specialist and a skills developer. Just rethinking how he might handle, especially individual. And would love to hear just your philosophy and maybe some of the things that you guys do that you feel are unique.
Yeah, I don't know if we do anything unique. Like I said before, we just we really try to isolate the skills that they're going to use, and then adding those layers of decision. So when we start, like maybe we start, like I think tracking the ball and catching overhead is a hard skill. So I'm a big proponent of pat and go, which a lot of people are. But then it's like not just ending there, like, okay, maybe it's pat and go for the first couple of weeks, but then we need to add, number one, you need to be moving that defender around. So it shouldn't always be press. Like, let's move the defender. What if it's a hard cover 2 corner? What if he's off in catch man? Giving all of those scenarios. And then I'm a big, like, let's add, he's in your hip pocket now, or let's add like a guy on your outside hip or your inside hip, and just adding those stressors that like are different so we can learn to adapt. So I think it's just taking those skills, that's just one example, and just making sure that we have a decision. We run some option routes, some seam reads, some deep choice at times, and it's just sometimes I think the best thing for that is like, we're just going to go one-on-one and we're going to rep it, and like, let's go full speed here and let's get some good, you got to be, you can't do that the whole practice, obviously, but I just like it live sometimes. And let's what's that guy doing? And then why did you react that way? And then if they messed up, then to me, that's just a learning opportunity for them, right? So why did you curl it there? Why did you decide to take it vertical there? Did that work? What would you do? Just asking those questions and working through that process. Again, just like the chaos of not lining up in the same front, just giving them different looks within the foundation of our plays, and then having them problem solve.
Yeah. I've been working with our receivers coach, and thinking of individual of a couple of things. Sean in his podcast brought up the idea of sparring partners, right? Like when you think about fighters and when they're sparring, they're not going full tilt all the time. I mean, they're working things at full speed, but the objective isn't to knock the other guy out while you're sparring. The objective is to learn movements, learn to react, see the different things that someone might do. And so really looked at what we can do and set up our different skills we want to learn kind of in that manner. And then borrowing from, I think, as an offensive line coach, and you see all the offensive line coaches do it, like the grids, right? So we created for our guys basically a bigger grid, like a 10 by 10, and what are the specific, maybe it's top of route and whatever, and getting another guy across from him who would play, let's say, corner or safety or whatever it might be, working his technique as well, right? Making this a dual purpose part of practice where, offense is the focus, but like, let's get some work in there and make him work. I'm not going to sit there and point and you do this. And so he does that. Like, let's figure it out on the run. Let's make the reactions different. Let's try things out, because, when you talk to, Sean, and you talk about CLA and constraints-led approach and, ecological dynamics, all those things, is that you have to account for every body type's different. What you're going to see against them is going to be different, and everybody moves in a different way. So it's really discovering like, okay, well, coach wants me to accomplish this. How do I best accomplish it, right? And if it's only me telling you have to do it this way robotically, sometimes that's not going to work. So we're looking at how we can really approach that. It's going to be a little bit of learning, I think, on the run for us to do it. But I think over time, we're going to see that that's going to be more effective than, call them everyday drills where we go out there and do single reactions every single time. And it's known ahead of time. Like, to me, those things, they have, like I said, have a time and place, but we want to really create the decision-making layer to every aspect of what they're doing, because that's what it boils down to in game. Doesn't mean that there's a ton of decisions to make, because I think when you look at any one play, there's maybe 3 to 4 things that happen 95% of the time. And then there's the oddball stuff like, well, I've never seen that before. So, you can really dial it in somewhat, but at the same time, it's really forcing these players to see and react.
Yeah, you talk about that. That reminded me of drill. This is on the defensive side of the ball, but we're a big pattern read team. And what I used to do as a secondary coach, I would always have like a diagram of a play. Well, that was taking time where guys were standing around. So like you said, you have your pods or whatever. We've done that with our secondary. We'll line up 4 receivers out there, and I just tell them it's fast, run whatever route you want. It doesn't matter. Like you both end up running a quick out or whatever, but at least now it's like, it's quick. We're getting that read. They're making their calls. They're communicating whether they're going to switch, they're not going to switch, all of that stuff. And then as soon as that route's done, the next person's up. So we're getting route running. We're getting that pattern read in, and it's not like we're getting a lot. There's 8 guys going, or probably more than that because we got our outside linebackers there too. So you've got a ton of guys getting reps. It's all every rep is different, and they're getting that read and react.
Yeah, no question. I want to change gears a little bit here and put it a little bit more on us right now as coaches and thinking about, the teaching gap, what we say versus what players hear. And I think this is really gets to the heart of it. So where do you see the biggest breakdown between what coaches think they communicate and what players actually understood?
Well, I think first is you should just not expect them to know. They don't know as much about football as you do. I think that's hard, especially when we've been in the business for 15, 20 years. Yeah, they love the game. They want to play, but they don't know the intricacies of the game that you have in your experience. So just getting up there and having a freshman or a sophomore and you're saying, well, this is this zone play, and you got to start with the process of they don't know anything and start from there. And so I think just doing that, and then understanding how learning happens. Lecturing is the worst and lowest form of learning. So I think there's a time and a place for a quick whiteboard, let's touch on this really quickly. But the quicker you can get out on the field, and if that's even slow at first where you're in a walkthrough type thing, but to me it's getting to that where you're on the field, they're actively doing, and then just asking them, having it be a community, not just I'm talking at you, having them either demonstrate or you're asking them the why, or what are we doing here? I've called this play. What are you thinking? And what are you going to do? What call are you going to make? How are we going to execute that? I think just having that back and forth so that they understand or don't understand, then you can work through that.
Yeah. To you, what are the signs that they're getting it, that they have that understanding?
To me, it's when you can call a play and they can tell you exactly, they can communicate okay, I'm going to do this. This is where my aiming point is. This is what I'm looking at. We're doing this to there. If they can explain that, and obviously on film too, if they're doing it, but to me, at the beginning, it's hey, let's call this. Let's talk through this. Can we all can we point to the right place? Can we get and explain that?
On the flip side of that, what are the signs maybe that a coach is using too much language?
If they can't tell you in a couple words what it is, what's the goal of the play or what they're supposed to be doing, if they can't say for us, we're a big wide zone, outside zone team, head on the outside shoulder. That should be they should be able to hey, what's your goal here of this play? Our linemen and our tight, they should know that instantly. If they don't have quick little cues that they can tell you right off the bat, then you probably need to start back over.
Yeah, I know you mentioned it a little bit here. I want to dig into it too. That check for understanding, right? Making sure that before you get too deep into it, that they're following along with you. What kinds of things do you do other than what you mentioned there out on the field to make sure players got it? Because it's easy for us to sit back and tell them what we saw. Mm-hmm. That doesn't mean they understand and can make that change. So how do you bridge that gap?
So it just depends on what their setting is. Sometimes you're going to be in a film room, whiteboard meeting type session. I think then it's just instead of just telling them okay, that play didn't work on film. Here's what you did wrong. It's just asking hey, what do you think I'm going to say? I say that a lot. Hey, I'm going to pause it right here. What do you think I'm going to say here? Is that good technique? Is that what we teach? Is that not what we teach? What would be the better way of doing that? If you're in a whiteboard setting, then just instead of you drawing it up, why not get your quarterback or your offensive line or your running back, okay, you draw it up right now. What are you looking for? And not just an arrow, but explain okay, so you're drawing that there. What's the aiming point? What is the having them explain the details of it. And like I said, I'm not huge on doing that for a long period of time. To me, I'd rather get up, and I'm a big let's walk. If we're teaching, let's walk through it. Let's get a defensive out there. Let's get the front we want, and let's talk through each one. Let's start with the tackle. Okay, what are you looking at here with the guard, and go through each position. What are we all looking at? What do we need to do to execute? And then just talking through it. And then obviously you get into your individual and you start to ramp up and kind of build that process. But I think as far as the learning and teaching, yeah, it's asking questions, making sure that the communication is going both ways.
Coaches, if you're looking to maximize reps and create a game-like tempo in practice, look no further than GoRout. With instant play call delivery, real-time adjustments, and seamless integration with your existing playbooks, GoRout allows your team to get the most out of every rep. Visit GoRout.com/podcast today to see how top programs across the country are using it to level up their practices. Getting into practice design a little bit, let's just start overview there. What do you look at as you're designing a practice? And let's say we're, in season. I mean, camp is one animal, but, there's that sense of urgency. We've got to get things done over the course of the week. So what do you look for in what you're going to design your practices to be?
So yeah, I start with the end in mind. So I'm usually going to script out my team first, just because taking the game plan into thought, like what do I think the best plays are to defeat the next team, and then we're going to work backwards. Okay, so what are the individual fundamentals that we need to work on for that day? And then also in the season, like you're going to adapt, right? You're going to see on film like, well, we're not executing this very well, so maybe it's coming back and like we need to reteach this concept or we need to restart. And so maybe at the beginning of practice, we're gonna walk through this again, even though it's week 5. Like this isn't going well. What's the issue here? Let's fix it. And then I'm big on let's keep doing the fundamentals. We're going to start there, and then we just kind of scaffold it. So we're going to start there with our fundamentals. We're going to build in our group type, whether that's half line or inside run type stuff, and then we're going to build into our team. But I think focusing on obviously what you need to execute that week, and then always reevaluate. Like we film every practice, we film every group drill, we film every team drill. It's just constantly like looking at that and being like, okay, where are our leaks? Where are our problems? And let's hone in on that.
So I think that's an interesting conversation, finding the leaks and then fixing them. What to you indicate that there are some leaks, and then for you, what are the typical solutions?
Yeah, can be in a number of things. Like I think the hard part too sometimes is like, is it a execution thing, or is it like, or were we just outmatched? I think there's that fine line of trying to figure that out, and then just seeing like, are we asking too much of certain players in these situations? So I think it's just looking at that, and then you have your fundamentals that we talked about at the beginning. Like, are we doing those? Like, are we, it's one thing to teach them and they say like, well, I need to step with my left foot at this angle, or this is my aiming point, but they're not doing it. So how do we get them to do that? We can show them, we can talk, they can understand, but at the end of the day, like either, we've got to figure out a way to do that. So I think it's talking, having those conversations, keep watching the film, keep going to those fundamentals, and then doing everything you can to try to get them to where they need to go. And I think it's just an ongoing. I've never been in a season where I'm like, oh well, I'm watching the film and we're perfect. To me, there's always some sort of fine tuning that we need.
You mentioned that you script everything out, and I think that's an important thing, because to me, the script does drive your practice, whether that's the number of reps you can get a certain play or concept over the course of the week. And I always look at things too, as the season gets going, the cumulative effect of reps, that something that might need 12 reps a week on each side early in the season might just need fine tuning, and you might be able to pull some things off of that and maybe make something else a little bit better. So I guess for you, what's the filter? How do you look at progressing through? What's the right time to maybe pull back on one thing and add to another, etc.?
Yeah. And so I usually, like, whatever we're going to hang our hat on, we're going to spend the most time on regardless. That's just kind of our philosophy. So we're going to start there, and then that number may change based on, like you said, like if we're executing it really well, it might go from 12 plays to 8, and then we can start filling in the gap with some other things. I usually I look at, like I said, the game plan. I look at how many reps I think we can get in that period. How long do we want to go? I'm going to start there. And then that's kind of going to dictate like my call sheet and all the rest of it. Like time. To me, time is the biggest constraint. And so how much we put in is going to be based on, number one, how many reps does that number one play need? Like if we can start to shrink that down because we're executing it well, then maybe we can add a few more things, but it's never going to go like I have that set, and it's not the same every year, but I have that set number of time. I have that set number of plays. We're going to stick to that. We're not going over it. And so that, to me, that script kind of dictates the game call sheet. It dictates, like the reps that you said and how we distribute it. I think it's kind of an art though. It's hard to say like, that distribution. It's going to change year to year on how much you need to work on something, how much you don't. If you've got a veteran crew of offensive line that's been together for 3 years, you're probably going to be able to add a few more things, a few more wrinkles. Same thing if your receivers are more veteran versus young guys, you're probably going to have to shrink it down a little bit. So I think that's the art of looking at the film, finding where you're at, and then adjusting each week.
Yeah, definitely. On the flip side of that, the defense, and I think it depends on the opponent and the level you're at, but you can't necessarily practice for everything that you saw on film either.
No.
So for you, as you're going through and scripting what you're going to work it against, what's been that filter? What's been, I guess, your rule of thumb for how much of that are you going to go against?
Yeah, we're not going to go against, like you said, we're not going to go against everything. I'm going to try to get their base look and what they line up in a majority of the time and how I think they're going to fit our formations. And we're going to do a few tweaks here and there. Like we're going to have periods where, we're going to go crazy with the put pressure, put blitz. If you're going to throw the ball in any sort of capacity, you need to be able to handle different things. Like I said, I try to be less robotic with that now and kind of let our defensive coordinator runs our scout team, and I kind of give him the discretion of like, hey, just mix it up and give us as many looks. And so I'm not scripting necessarily as much as I used to versus specific looks. I want to make sure that we understand what their base defense is going to be, but I want to be ready for whatever they throw at us on a Friday night.
Now, you mentioned the idea of good on good too, and I think scout team is always the consideration. I think what's interesting over the last couple of years, in more and more of these conversations I have with coaches at every level, I've started hearing more good on good, even good on good unscripted periods where the head coach kind of has control over the situation and is throwing his offense and defense into it. And I think there's a lot of validity to it. I mean, you have national champ / national runner-up over the last several years. North Central had Coach Spencer on last fall as one of our D3 head coaches of the week. And it was one of the things he talked about, like throughout their practice, there's going to be multiple good on good periods. And he felt like speed of the game was more important than the looks at a slower coming at you, just because that's all your scout team can do. So what are your thoughts on that? I mean, I've been thinking a lot about that lately. Those are the conversations we have, whether we have to go to I don't want to say half line, because half line, I think you need the full picture, especially, if you're doing some of the things like we are with zones. Like it's easy to cut back to nothing, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But we've toyed around with the idea of is it the front side, maybe for a certain part of the period, we're going to run things to the right, and the front side is good against good, and backside's maybe our younger guys. So we're looking around at some of those ideas just because I do think they have validity. And I also feel like it could help get some of those developmental players a little bit more time as well.
Yeah. So I'm in complete agreement of the trying to get as much within reason, good on good, where everybody's getting enough breaks and reps. We've played around like 3/4 line, half line. We've done all that, but that's kind of been our way to get around it in those smaller pod groups is either, like you said, going like a young side, old side, or maybe we just don't have the backside tackle and like we leave the backside. There's different ways of playing around, but where we get, those better players. And then if we have so our roster, we're about right under 60, 9 through 12. So, we typically have 25-ish, somewhere in that range, varsity players. So we might have 3 or 4 that aren't going both ways. So if they're not on, let's say, first D or first O, we want them to be the first scout guys over there. And so I think that's just something that we've always done. And we're going to continue to do that. I think, the speed of having really good corners or really good safeties or really, really good D linemen to put pressure on the offensive line or the receivers, or having the quarterback where the quarterback's not just throwing to wide open receivers every play. I think as much as you can get good on good within reason of not gassing guys, still giving them rest. And, you're going to have periods where, to me, where sometimes too, if we know we need to give these guys a break and we maybe have younger guys in, maybe that's a slower, it's a 3/4 speed, half speed. We're just trying to get more mental reps. And then when the good guys are back in there, the older guys, and now it's like, hey, let's go harder on this. So I think it's balancing that, but trying to get as much good on good as you can.
Yeah. As we've kind of unraveled this conversation from, executing and that gap between, what your players are actually doing and what you think you're teaching. I mean, a lot of this comes down to the planning, the execution, looking at every aspect of it. And those are things you talked about. So we talked about the good on good. Let's talk a little bit about, I think you gave a highlight here of that scout team and what you're going to be able to do to get maybe some of those looks and how you might go about that.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, we're going to try to get we're always like saying, hey, best 11 that aren't in. We're trying to get the best guys we can. And I think honestly, scout team is a great way. We try to motivate our guys. Like, not obviously we don't want guys that are listening to the play and trying to, be that scout team hero or whatever, but we want good, hard looks. And we talk about this every year. We find that those diamond in the roughs all the time from scout team. And so I think promoting your scout team and making sure as a staff that you're taking care of your scout team, you're making sure that those guys are, because that's a thankless job sometimes. There's a lot of guys that work hard on that scout team that might never see the field on Friday night. So I think emphasizing that is like praising those guys and making sure they're getting, the recognition that they deserve, and just making sure that we're competing on every rep, regardless of maybe, hey, he's an all-state wide receiver and you're a freshman corner out there. Well, hey, this is your chance to get better, and really making sure that we promote that.
So with scout team, I think that plays another part of this. This is another component. A well-run scout team, a motivated scout team, a scout team that is giving you the closest or best look because they know what they're supposed to be doing. I know you use GoRout, so talk to us about how that helps you both run an efficient practice and how that's been big for player development as well.
Yeah, so I think we're coming up on our 4th season of using the GoRout technology, and that honestly has been, I'm the OC, I'm the head coach, but I'm also the OC, and then our DC, we both run our scout teams for each other. So I run the offensive scout team, he runs the defensive scout team. So for me, like running that scout team, having those GoRoutes has been invaluable. Number one, like we talked about earlier, like time is the most valuable thing you have. Like you can only practice so long. The more reps you can get in, the better your team's going to be. And so for us, being able to operate basically in a no-huddle environment, regardless of whether the team we're playing is tempo or not, we're always trying to push to see how many reps we can get in a period. And so having number one, planning it out where you have your script that you want, and then just being able to put that script into a GoRoute and then just push send, and the kids are lining up. We put it in our verbiage and everything, and just being able to do that and operate, I feel like we get probably double the reps we would normally. And so that's been huge. And then we use it, when we're offensively, especially if we're going to see a stunt heavy team, some sort of like 3-4, 3-3 that's going to be bringing lots of stunts. We use them in those capacities too, where we can, or if they're a multiple coverage team where they're going to be rolling different sides, so we can quickly send that to the scout team. We're not having to take a lot of time in between. So anything that we can find to get more reps like that, that's huge.
Coach Troyer, really appreciate you being a part of this podcast. It was great to meet you here, and just want to wish you and your team the best of luck here moving forward.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Enjoyed it.
Execution starts with clarity. If players don't understand it, can't communicate it, and have not practiced in a game-like environment, we can't expect it to show up when the pressure is on. A big thank you to Coach Preston Troyer for joining us and sharing his perspective on how coaches can close the gap between teaching and execution. Thanks for tuning in to today's episode of The Art of Practice presented by GoRout. If you found value in this conversation, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with another coach who's working to get more out of practice and help his players execute when it matters most. Follow all we're doing on the Coaching Coordinator Network at coachandcoordinator.com, and follow us on X at Coach K. Grabowski.